Coming up on Tech News Today, Andy Rubin working on Androids again. Snapchat pulls a Facebook move and Google Chrome apps for iOS. Yes, all that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Wednesday, December 4th, 2013. Tech News Today is brought to you by Stamps.com. Start using your time more effectively with Stamps.com. Use Stamps.com to buy and print real U.S. postage the instant you need it right from your desk. To get this special offer, go to Stamps.com now, click on the radio microphone, and enter TNT. That's Stamps.com. Enter TNT. And by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create your own professional website or online portfolio. For a free 2-week trial and 10% off, go to squarespace.com and use offer code TNT12. And by Gazelle, the fast and simple way to sell your used gadgets. Find out what your used iPhone, iPad, and other Apple products are worth at gazelle.com. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Aya Akhtar.
I'm Jason Howell.
And this is the show that keeps you up to date on the most important stories in the tech world. Try just to put them in some context for you, starting with the top 10 stories of the day in the News Fuse. As it turns out, when Andy Rubin left Google's Android department to work on a secret project, he was going to work on androids, but with a lowercase a for reals. In an interview with the New York Times, Rubin revealed he's working on a robotics project for Google. The New York Times reports Google has acquired 7 robotics companies over the last 6 months, and sources say the aim is to aid in manufacturing, most likely of electronics, as well as competition in the retail supply chain, a la Amazon's warehouses.
An Android smartphone called the Yota phone that has both a regular color touchscreen and an e-paper display will go on sale later today in Russia and parts of Europe for about the equivalent of 499 euros. The Yota phone has a 4.3-inch 720p LCD display, a dual-core 1.7 gigahertz Snapdragon processor, 2 gigs of RAM, 32 gigs of storage. All sounds good, but it also has an e-paper display on the back, which is also 4.3 inches, but has a lower resolution of 640 by 360 pixels. Yota describes it as an always-on, low-power display that can be used to view ebooks, battery life, notifications, and other info.
Valve just joined the Linux Foundation officially. The company released a Linux client back in February and announced its SteamOS would be based on Linux. With the move to join the Linux Foundation, Valve will be contributing tools for developers to work on SteamOS and hopes to entice hardware makers to support Linux above other platforms. Windows.
Brad Saunders is the chairman of the USB 3.0 Promoter Group, and they released a statement today announcing the next version of the USB standard will feature a new connector called Type-C. Designed for USB 3.1's spec, Type-C will be about the size of the current micro USB plug, so a lot smaller, features scalable power data rates, near 10 gigabits per second, and best of all, it will be reversible. That's right. It's no more jamming it in the wrong way and messing up your USB port, people. I hope the spec will be finalized by the middle of 2014.
A nonprofit called Education Superhighway, which lets schools test their broadband speeds and secure better connections, has raised $9 million. The round is led by Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg's Startup Education Fund and also includes the Gates Foundation. Evan Marwell, who's the CEO of Education Superhighway, says slow internet speeds is a, quote, fairly consistent problem in rural, urban, and suburban America. Over 40 million students are being left behind without the internet access and Wi-Fi they need to take full advantage of digital learning.
I'm still very excited about reversible USB. Awesome. The Next Web found a GitHub repository called Mobile Chrome Apps that would bring packaged Chrome apps to Android and iOS. Now, the toolkit would allow those packaged Chrome apps to interact with the Android and iOS hardware using Apache Cordova. Google hasn't mentioned when the toolkit will be official, but Google's Joe Marini says they hope to have a beta in January.
The rumored YouTube music service that Google has never announced but has been reported to launch in the summer and then delayed until the end of this year is getting a rumored delay again. All Things D reports the licensing deals for the music are all in place, but Google isn't yet satisfied with the product itself, so it's pushing off a launch until next year. Maybe, just maybe, that's why they never announced it in the first place. Who knows? My wife, she works there.
Sammy Kamkar, a serial hacker responsible for the MySpace Sammy Worm back in 2005, remember that? Landed him in jail, has released hardware and software specs to create a drone hacking drone. Oh, what fun. You and I can now make an aerial drone that will be able to hunt down other drones, hack into those drones, and then control them. That sounds great. Kamkar is calling it Skyjack. It requires a Raspberry Pi circuit board, as well as a Parrot AR drone quadcopter, a small battery, and 2 wireless transmitters. Then there will also be reportedly a version of Skyjack that runs on a grounded Linux machine to hack drones within radio range. Not weird at all. Nothing to worry about.
China's Ministry of Industry and Information Technology finally issued its TD-LTE licenses to China Mobile, China Unicom, and China Telecom, and it just so happens that Apple's latest iPhone supports TD-LTE. And it also just so happens that every analyst in the world has been projecting big sales for Apple if and when they could launch an iPhone on China Mobile, the country's largest wireless carrier. So there are your dots. Have fun connecting them.
Is driving with Google Glass legal in California? I guess we're going to find out because the person who got a ticket for driving with Google Glass is fighting that ticket in court. Cecilia Abidi's attorney says Glass was not being used while his client was driving, but was activated when she looked up at the officer as he stood at her window after pulling her over for speeding. They will also argue that the citation for driving with a video screen on should not apply to wearable devices like Glass.
Interesting. This episode of Tech News Today is brought to you by Stamps.com. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm headed out to do a little gift shopping this afternoon, and I'm not looking forward to it because you know what the malls are? They are a mess. Traffic, parking, it's packed everywhere. But you know what I don't have to go to is the post office because I'm going to use Stamps.com to mail the gifts instead. With Stamps.com, you avoid all the hassle of going to the post office during the busy holiday season. Everything you do at the post office, you can do from the comfort of your own desk. You can buy and print official U.S. postage using your computer and printer. You can print postage for any letter or package the instant you need it. And then a uniformed member of the government comes to your house, probably every day except Sunday anyway, and he'll pick it up, or she. So easy, so convenient. I use Stamps.com. In fact, when I do reviews for Twit and they send me the packages, it always comes with a Stamps.com return box. So it's easy for me to just hand it to the guy and send it back. Right now, get the special offer when you use our promo code TNT for a no-risk trial plus a $110 bonus offer, including if you're like, well, wait a minute, what if I'm sending packages? I got to know how much they weigh. A digital scale free. Digital scale up to $55 of free postage. Don't wait. Go to Stamps.com before you do anything else. Click on the microphone at the top of the homepage and type in TNT. That's Stamps.com. Enter TNT. And we thank them for their support of Tech News Today. All right, joining us now to discuss the stories of the day. Very happy to have back on the show Lance Ulanoff, editor-in-chief of Mashable. Good morning, Lance. How's it going?
You're muted.
Or good afternoon. See, he was waiting. Yeah.
Pretty good. Sorry about that. I'm muted in case I didn't want to cough during all of your news.
That's very considerate of you, sir.
I know.
I appreciate it. Well, let's start talking about robots. Andy Rubin has finally admitted what his secret project, his moonshot project was. It's not part of the X Lab, though. He's not part of Sergey Brin's floating internet self-driving car Google Glass group. He's got his own group. He's hiring roboticists like crazy. His main headquarters is going to be in Palo Alto, but they've got an office in Japan. And according to several people with specific knowledge of the project this time, always a new phrase, the robots will likely be used in manufacturing and competing with Amazon-like companies. So supply chain management. Obviously, electronics assembly, I think we could all understand how that might work. But automating portions of an existing supply chain is interesting.
Robots, robots are suddenly hot again. I swear, not to toot my own horn, but I predicted this in my 2013 Outlook. I said robots are going to come back. It's still not the kind I'm hoping for consumer robotics, but you've got them. You've got Chris Anderson. You've got the robot from gosh, what was it from the MIT Rodney Brooks robot?
Oh, right, yeah.
Everybody's kind of excited about this again, and what's interesting about the way Google's building it is I think they're doing it in a smart way. You start with somebody who understands how to really build a business. Andy Rubin gets it. He knows how to run product. And then you put the really smart people underneath him. So maybe some real stuff gets delivered. We were talking this morning, and of course, this is idea. Oh, they made a robotic car. So now imagine a robot steps out of the robotic car and then delivers the package to your door. But the distance between that robotic car and that Android robot, that humanoid stepping out of the car, is a very big distance. I've been speaking to roboticists since, I don't know, for the last 12 years, and they always put the date at like 2050 at best for that kind of robot to be out there and about.
And all the companies they've bought so far, I was looking at the 6 companies that they bought. 3 of them make arms. Only 1 of them makes wheels. None of them make legs. It's going to be hard for them to get to your corner.
Legs are, it's funny. Legs are really difficult. Some of the best robots, like Segway is a robot, self-balancing.
Sure.
And they actually get around a lot better. And then if you have like a tread that can kind of be both wheels and sort of rolling, you can get over kind of weird terrain. So as much as we would like to see something that looks and acts like us, that is much harder work. If you've seen the DARPA videos, though, Big Dog and all that, where they have these, there you go, running along 4 legs and stuff. I mean, that's funded by DARPA. That's taken years to get to where they are. And, that's definitely not something that's ready to walk about your neighborhood without people running and screaming the other way.
Exactly. Also, there's the Honda Asimo. If you ever seen that robot walk around, I think walking robots are freaking creepy. So the wheels make sense. The arms seem friendly because they'll be able to hand you things or reach things a normal human could do. It just seems it was funny because when Andy Rubin when he left Android, it seemed like, okay, he's being sent to Siberia. He's going to be leaving the company at some point, and he's never going to show up again. And then what's his crazy project now? Robots. Of course it's robots.
He's lucky. It's awesome. I mean, it's awesome to be working on robots. It's the thing I certainly love the most. And, I want to see something cool come out of there. The articulation, the hand part is a really difficult problem. I've spoken to iRobot, who makes the Roomba. They are spending a lot of time and money on the exact same problem, and they have all these different designs for picking up a single object. And again, it's not what you think. Everybody thinks, oh, it's going to be a hand. It's going to be the hand that comes down. But sometimes it's like a bean bag, almost a rubber bean bag filled with grain, and they suck the air out of it because it can form around any object and then pick it up with incredible delicacy. So, robots are never what you think, but I'm always just happy to hear that people like Andy Rubin are working on them.
Lance, I think we need to complete your vision of the future by having a self-driving car, and then a robot gets out to deliver you your Roomba. There you go.
Which goes in and immediately starts cleaning up.
It's perfection. Look, Amazon, the drones, those are robots. They said they're robots, and good luck actually getting the FAA to approve them. So it's not just the technology that's a hurdle, it's the bureaucracy.
And if you're putting these dots together in your head right now, wait a minute, Andy Rubin, Android, we're making those jokes. Andy Rubin worked on robotics at Carl Zeiss. And when he was at Apple, he got the nickname Android because he was so robot focused. He loved robots. So this is him going back to his first love. It's why Android is called Android, because of Andy Rubin's love of robots. So it's all come full circle.
It's kind of a dream job.
Yeah, that's what he said in that New York Times article. Exactly.
Honor of him, we should all do the robot.
I will spare people that.
Come on, Tom, get jiggy with it.
No, maybe at the end of the show. We'll see.
All right.
Let's talk about Instagram. Yeah, by the Snapchat and Instagram. Snapchat snapping up an Instagram employee, actually.
Yeah, Emily White, who's a Facebook executive who most recently, as of April this year, was heading up advertising for Instagram. She's actually a Google alum as well, is leaving the company to become the chief operating officer of Snapchat. All Things D reported this yesterday. It was an exclusive. Kara Swisher says, this is a pretty clear signal that Snapchat is going to remain independent. They're not going to sell to anybody. They're hiring an executive team. They're going to grow their business. What's also interesting about it is Snapchat is headquartered in Los Angeles. White will be moving there. She became the director of business operations at Instagram earlier this year. And she's been working very closely with Instagram CEO Kevin Systrom. Obviously, Instagram is a Facebook property, to expand their partnerships with brands, improve user operations, figure out how to make money. That's still something that Instagram is very much in the experimental phase of. But Snapchat doesn't have any revenue model at all, and certainly doesn't have any clear brand partnerships. So, you know, what would be the reason that Snapchat would be so attractive? Well, besides the fact that it's just a hot commodity, it's also completely on the rise as far as a user base. In the summer, the service claimed they had 2 million pictures and videos being received by their users on a daily basis. That was up from 150 million just a few months before. In September, that number became 350 million. At a recent conference, Evan Spiegel, who's the CEO of Snapchat, said it was 400 million. So crazy, crazy, crazy growth here. So I don't know, Lance, have you thought about what the ideal Snapchat monetization would look like, considering it's not lasting very long?
I know, right? That's the tough thing, the ephemeral nature of this. I mean, what are you going to do before you can see the thing someone shared with you for just a moment? Do you see an ad? Or do you see basically, do you see that image and right below it a little like bit of text or some sort of deal? I mean, there are definitely ways to do it, but it's going to be hard to excite advertisers, marketers, and brands about this, because they probably do understand the limitations of Snapchat as a platform for delivering their message, because those messages will be just as fleeting as the photos. So I think that's a tough thing. I do, you know, as you were talking about this, I just kept thinking about the blow to Instagram, because they're literally on the precipice of introducing ads in between, you know, in between the photos you see. Like, they've done a couple of experiments, but they really haven't gone full on in. So now the person who's kind of really involved with that is off doing this other thing. You know, she hasn't proven that she can do it for Instagram, really. She just sort of started, yet Snapchat has picked her up. I think that whenever we see growth like this, everybody believes there has to be a way to monetize it. I mean, honestly, we talked about this with Facebook. We talked about this with Twitter, and those are products with staying power. Snapchat is on the cusp of being something with staying power. Its growth is certainly on the right trajectory, and also something very important. This is one reason why advertisers may really care. Snapchat has a hold of the best demographic, the youngest demographic that is really interested in buying stuff, the cool stuff. They're influential until the next cool thing comes along.
I guess
the
the
thing,
advantage
though.
you could
It's
say on
fleeting,
Snapchat
isn't
is
it?
that they have focus. They like, when you see a Snapchat, you look at it. In Instagram, you can skim by stuff, and maybe you miss that ad because you're just, you know, going through your feed. Snapchat, something comes in, because it's fleeting, you're going to pay more attention to it. I think the reason they snap up Emily White, though, is because she figured out how's the best way to put ads in Instagram that doesn't really piss off the majority of the audience. And so far, it has been questionable whether it's worked.
I was going to say, she hasn't actually figured it out yet.
So Snapchat may have snapped her up a little too early, but that's probably what they're thinking is, how can we put monetization in here without blowing off the audience? And it may have nothing to do with ads. I would think they would want to sell stuff to you, sell filters and stickers and things like that.
I'm very glad that that Snapchat actually hired an adult who will probably say, hey, by the way, when somebody offers you $3 billion, take it. I think that's what's going to happen with Snapchat. Well, going to end up with Google. Go ahead.
But they're building their executive team in order to be independent. I mean, I don't think she wants them to do that either.
Just show up and cash out.
I do think something else that's possible, one other idea that she could have for monetization, because I think she understands these kinds of platforms and what works best for each platform, because what Tom said is very true about the nature of Snapchat. So what if you opted in for deals on Snapchat, and the deals could be delivered just the same way that the regular Snapchat could? So again, they get your attention. You look at, oh my God, it's like Woot, you know, right? I've got 10 minutes to get this awesome deal. So you have to take action in a very short period of time. You know, it's really been delivered. It's a push to you that you respond to. So that unique nature of the platform could prove to be the winning formula for Snapchat to become profitable or make revenue.
Google's got a winning formula, they think, for making those Chrome apps more attractive, the easy ability to translate them over to iOS and Android devices.
Yeah, the tools were found by the NextWeb on a GitHub repository. It wasn't on Google's code page. Google's mentioned this before back in September that they're working on a way to get their Chrome apps into iOS and Android, but this is the actual toolkit that has been found. And this toolkit allows the developers to create and import Chrome apps for mobile. So we're talking about iOS and Android with Android 4.x support first before iOS. The Chrome packaged apps, right? If you ever use one of these things, they are able to access the GPU and the local actual hardware resources of your device. So they're very much like native applications when you try them out. So to have a way to have this software talk to the hardware on mobile, Google is using something called Apache Cordova tools, and what this does, it gives it an equivalent to all of the Chrome APIs. So you don't need to have Chrome the browser, and this app is not running in Chrome the browser. These apps would be in the Play Store and the iOS Store. The rumor is that it'll show up next January because they're hoping for a beta. This was from Joe Marini, from his Google developer advocate. He says they hope for a beta in January. There's no hard timelines right now. Lance, what's the end game for Chrome on this? Like, if we have Chrome OS apps that can go to mobile, is this to bolster Chrome OS, or is this to have more mobile apps, or is there convergence with Android? What do you think is going on there?
Yeah, there's. I think that's your answer. The last thing, the thing that Google insists is not going to happen, the collapse of this sort of desktop and mobile platform, which I don't really understand. Now, this time of year is interesting for Google and Chrome and Chromebooks because they tend to sell a lot of them because they're super cheap and they'll flood the stores with them. I don't always hear a lot of stories about like how much people love them after that, but I think that aside, it just has never made sense for these things to be apart. This is a kludge to me. This is a really weird in-between step because anytime you have applications running on a non-native platform and they're using almost some sort of container, the experience can be a little bit odd. It's like through a glass darkly. It's not going to be a pure connection to the CPU. It's going to be like handled to the CPU. So I don't know what the experience will be, but it's going to make people aware that Chrome has apps, and if people fall in love with the apps on these other platforms, maybe they start to think about, well, what if I had this platform at home? What if I had a laptop or the sort of mini system that they have, and I became all Chrome all the time? But I still think that the end game is that mobile, and this is one operating system, and they want to sort of test it out and make sure all these apps run in all places. That's a guess, obviously.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to look at this and try to say, oh, well, maybe this is Chrome and Android, trying to merge a little bit. And it is a little weird whenever you have an app running into a container. But I feel like, plain and simple, this is Google trying to tell developers, hey, we need you to develop for the Chrome web platform, and we're going to try to make it easier for you by making it easy to translate these into mobile apps. But like you said, Lance, maybe this time will be different. But those situations have never proven to be as seamless as maybe people would have liked them to be.
And this makes some sense when the Pixel came out, everyone was like, why a touchscreen? Chrome OS is not optimized for that kind of thing. If they were always planning this in the pipeline, we've seen another touchscreen, I think from Acer, a Chromebook. If you're going to have these touchscreen devices, why would Chrome need this? Well, if they're going to have the same apps and you're living in that whole Google universe, you have this seamless synced experience. I think that could be a big draw in the future. We've also seen Google they did something very similar for Windows, where if you install Chrome, the browser, you had these extra like app launchers and things. So they're really building awareness, but I don't know how long these two things can stay separate without this kind of intermingling.
All right, let's take a quick break and thank one of our other sponsors for today's show, Squarespace.com, the all-in-one platform that makes it fast and easy to create your own professional website or online portfolio. We talk a lot about Squarespace sites. We've shown some of your Squarespace sites, but maybe you missed it when we talked about Jason Howell's Squarespace site, because Jason is a musician when he's not being brilliant behind the board. And Jason, you use Squarespace to put together your music site.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was really cool about it also, like I know I've talked about it and just kind of the features that they have built in as far as making, embedded music players and offering up everything up for sale through the site. But what was so cool about this is, a couple of months ago, my site looked completely different. And when I knew that this album was coming out and that I wanted to kind of change the presentation of it entirely, all I had to do was kind of go into Squarespace. They had a bunch of templates to choose from, and in like an hour I had something that just looked completely different but tailor-made for offering music through the site. You can check it out at yellowgoldmusic.com if you kind of want to see what you can do around kind of offering music on a Squarespace site. It's awesome.
Easy to use, mobile ready, so his site is going to look right on a phone screen as well as on a big screen, and it's inexpensive. Starts at just $8 a month, including a free domain name if you sign up for a year. So why don't you go start a free 2-week trial with no credit card required? You don't have to give them your credit card number. Just start building a website. When you decide to sign up for Squarespace, make sure to use the offer code TNT12 to get 10% off and to show your support for Tech News Today. We thank Squarespace for their support of Tech News Today. Squarespace, everything you need to create an exceptional website. Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates want to make it rain on the educational superhighway, Sarah.
Yeah, as I mentioned in the news fuse, Education Superhighway, which is a nonprofit, has teamed up with Zuck's Startup Education Fund and also the Gates Foundation, which of course is the charitable group led by not just Bill Gates, but his wife, Melinda Gates, as well, along with several other foundations, raised about $9 million. What's kind of interesting about Zuckerberg's Startup Education Fund is that Education Superhighway is the first nonprofit that it has given any money to. So last month, it also participated in a round for Panorama Education. We mentioned it on the show, which focuses on creating and then parsing school surveys to improve feedback between teachers and parents and students. Well, Education Superhighway is all about not just getting internet up and running in schools, but making it faster and offering ways to test internet speeds in schools to give information back to Education Superhighway so that then they can support, let's say, the FCC with policy recommendations for how to modernize the U.S. school education system. Public schools, they've got a host of problems, and it sounds like internet speeds are just one of them. With new money, the idea would be expand that speed test network to cover all U.S. states. Currently, only 26 of the 50 are covered. To have more outreach abroad, to improve the portal, pricing information, technical expertise, blah, 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 assist schools when they say, okay, we've got a problem here. Now, how do we upgrade? And then, of course, lobbying efforts to make sure that the government is involved because, again, when it comes to public schools, the government's always involved. So apparently, according to Education Superhighway, 72% of schools in the U.S. have out-of-date, slow, or no internet connections at all. So you've got kids who are going to public schools. It's like they can't get online. If they can't get online at home, well, perhaps they're not getting online at all. And there's about $2.4 billion in annual federal funding that is designed to make use of this exact problem, but that money has to be divvied up. So this is it's basically an effort to make it all happen. Lance, what do you think? Better internet in schools, better opportunity? I mean, obviously, when you throw names like Mark Zuckerberg and Bill Gates into the mix, you say, oh, well, these are billionaires and maybe there's another agenda. What does it sound like to you?
Well, certainly with Bill Gates, I don't think there's another agenda. The guy is a proven philanthropist. His work on malaria in Africa and other things. I mean, he's definitely working hard to give away every dollar he has. And this is, he's picking some interesting and important causes. Zuckerberg is kind of new to the game, but has really pulled sort of broadband access for everyone into center focus. And, what's interesting to me about this story is that not only, and you mentioned a little bit, so you have all those schools, 72%, which sounds a little bit high, but all these schools that don't have like cutting edge broadband. And then the poor kids at home, between 20 and 30% of these kids go home and they don't have broadband there either. So they're cut off on all sides. I mean, I think that there are pockets of the U.S. where people live where they don't realize how different the rest of the country is, and the sort of the dark spots where it's hard to get broadband access to the middle of the country, where, you know, the flyover states where the infrastructure still remains poor. So, you know, it tends to be those areas where you don't have great connectivity, and satellite is oftentimes they try and use satellite broadband, and it's not so great. So it's a good effort. It's a smart effort. But I sense that bureaucracy is the thing that they really have to get out of the way. You know, when there is available money and it's not being used, it's usually because of bureaucracy and a disagreement about how the money will be spent. And if you know anything about local school boards, because that's what it gets down to, it gets really weird and complicated because everybody has, you know, no, broadband's not as important as that AstroTurf, all right? We really need that on the field because these kids, you know, it's the dirt and all that. And for some people, it's incredibly just as important to them as broadband access. So it's a complicated thing. I'm just glad these guys are shining a light on it and are going to put money against it, and you know, a little bit of their sort of collective power so people feel the need to move.
And I guess Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg didn't get mad at each other when Gates sort of cast aspersions on Zuckerberg's internet or connectivity efforts in Africa, saying, you know, malaria, probably a bigger deal to work on. In the United States, I guess it's a different story. Speaking of connectivity, though, we got another interesting story from Stacey Higginbotham at gigaohm.com. Netflix is going to be the first customer for an open internet exchange. Now, I'm going to explain to you why you might want to care about this, even though you've never heard of it, maybe. AMS-IX in New York is the first major internet player to deal with an internet exchange created through the OpenIX initiative. We probably think, most of us, that when we call a web page, it's our computer asking a server to send the web page, right? That's the simplistic way. But some of us know, I know a lot of you guys out there know, that when I send a request, it gets routed through lots of different places, through your ISP, through a transit provider. Maybe you even know of something like Level 3 we've talked about before on the show. What few people probably know about is internet exchange providers, IXPs. That's the place where the interconnects happen. Now, IXPs in the U.S. are centralized. They're run by companies. One of the biggest is Equinix. They charge. So you got this big data center. They charge for the wire from one place to the other inside the data center, right? So that means that it costs more to interconnect in the United States. In Europe, that's not the way it works. GigaOhm reprinted a chart showing the average fiber cross-connect price in European cities versus the U.S., staggeringly more expensive in the U.S. It's sometimes more than 4 times more expensive to interconnect because Europe has open IXPs that are owned by the members rather than by a third party. They're also housed more widely available. Here in the United States, we tend to have all the interconnects in one building, like 350 East Cermak in Chicago. If that building goes down, people have said, in fact, there's an article on datacenterknowledge.com said if that goes down, the internet goes down. Hurricane Sandy kind of was a wake-up call for that sort of thing. So David Temkin, who's the director of network architecture at Netflix, is the chair of the board of directors for OpenIX. He's been working on this along with Martin Hannigan from Akamai, members of Comcast and Iron Mountain, to make open internet exchanges happen in the United States. And Netflix, with 30% of the bandwidth on average, is a good first customer for them to try this out. Lance, do you think this could be another factor in why the internet is just so expensive here in the United States?
Yeah, the infrastructure has grown. It's not like it was built to support what we do. It's sort of been built in a hodgepodge and growing out almost organically as we've grown. And it couldn't have foreseen the way we use the internet. And certainly no one really saw Netflix eating up 30% of traffic the way it is now. And that's only going to get worse because people are consuming so much video. So I think that has played, it does definitely plays a factor in some of the costs that are passed along to us for our broadband access. You know, we all talk about broadband, and it's that is a term that is very loose because you can have speeds that are would be considered fairly slow all the way up to 100 megabits per second. So it's this wide range of stuff. And what people want, if they want 20, say, most people want 20 megabits, it's not cheap per month, and that's on top of all the other costs they've got. And they're using mobile broadband now. So the costs are high, the infrastructure costs are high, and something like this may help, but I guess this is a case where I'm a little cynical. I will be very surprised if Netflix or anyone else who switches over to this and saves money actually passes those costs along to U.S. customers. I can almost guarantee that won't happen.
They will not pass the savings along to you. Ayaz, do you agree?
Probably, I do agree with that, unfortunately, because the thing is, if the market is used to a certain kind of cost, the market's not going to switch that right away unless there's an upstart. And we've seen that kind of thing happen with the wireless space. We see MVNOs that they're piggybacking on existing network infrastructure. But the thing is, if we can get a larger infrastructure being built out with what Netflix is doing here, if you have OpenIX and you have this everywhere, in the long run, maybe it'll get cheaper because there'll be more competition because you have more ways to connect as opposed to it being kind of controlled in these specific areas. So short term, savings probably not so much. In the long term, hopefully lots of more competition because it happened in the wireless space.
Hopefully. Yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys that work on this sort of thing. I know there's a few of you out there, more than one, at TNT@twit.tv. What do you think the knock-on effect of this will be? Will we see less of these disputes between like a Comcast and a Netflix and a Level 3? Or is this just too far upstream to really have an effect? Be interesting to find out. Let's talk about Yahoo acquiring Pitch. There's no vowels in Pitch.
Yeah, it's almost like a Web 2.0 company, but it's pronounced Pitch, but it's PTCH. Yahoo picked up the team behind the mobile video app. Now, this app was started inside of DreamWorks Animation, and it allowed users to remix their videos and photos with effects and music. There's a video demo on Pitch. We'll have it right now. We can show you this. So it's basically like it's like a slideshow maker kind of thing. You could add your music, and this is the web version of it. And somebody's like doing a chalk art festival, and so it's supposed to make it really simple to have remixed videos, and those videos themselves could be remixed by other users. So in a blog post announcing the acquisition, Pitch is going to shut down on January 2nd, 2014, and the post says the Pitch team will focus its efforts to make Yahoo's photo and video platforms the best in the world. Now, this year, Yahoo already purchased Quickie, another app that does pretty much the same thing. It lets you create movies out of photos and videos in their camera roll. The question to you, Lance, do you think Yahoo's photo and video products will be the best in the world soon?
Oh, I don't know about that. There's so many different photo apps, so many choices to use. Picking up something like this, which adds some features, is smart. There's a lot of other products out there for photo and video, like Viclone is a good example of something that is fun to use because if you're all shooting in one place, it pulls a video together. But it doesn't have a lot of users, and it's basically a feature that you could add onto something else. Yahoo could buy them as well, but it's not always about the best tools. It's about sort of with photo apps and photo communities, it's about the number of people using it, the number of people involved on the service. Instagram is not the most powerful photo tool out there by any stretch, but everybody's using it. And if you want reaction response to your photos, you tend to, that's what you use. There's a great set of filters. I am a Flickr member. And I love the new Flickr app. I think it's great. I think Yahoo's done a great job with it. But I probably spend more time on Instagram. So, again, it's not about features. It's about the community.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, Lance. I still believe in Flickr. I still have an account. I pay for a premium one. But there's not really anything going on at Flickr these days. People have definitely moved on. We have a lot of other options. This whole mashing up music and remixing things like photos and videos, I've seen this done before. There was a startup called Mixel that couldn't make it happen, even though it was interesting. They pivoted, and then that's the end of that. There are a couple other examples of this sort of thing where it's like, okay, well, we don't want to be just another video / photo service, so we're going to let people remix their creations. And don't think anybody's figured that out yet. I can't imagine that Yahoo really wants that technology, but there's probably something to the back end of pitch that they could apply to Flickr. They have to do something with Flickr. I mean, it's Marissa Mayer came to Yahoo, and one of the biggest shouts was make Flickr cool again. And it's like nothing's really happened besides the fact that now we get a terabyte for free of storage. It's not like anyone's come back and drove. So I'd really like to see how they try to resurrect Flickr with this acquisition.
Yeah, I would say on Flickr, by the way, that the one thing they have done is cause some confusion, because even though I'm paying, I think I came away with the idea that I really don't have to pay to get the exact same thing I had before. And yet they still want me to pay for some reason because I think there's a benefit. I can't even figure out what the benefit is, but I've sort of left it in place right now till I have the time to sit down and figure out what they actually changed. So that wasn't such a great move to make that change and leave people confused. But, there's got to be, it's almost like Flickr is a powerful app that needs to strip down enough to be, easy to use and create highly shareable photos, just like something called Instagram.
All right, let's fire up the randomizer. A straw poll of our audience today, and 60% of them said they wanted to hear us talk about Vatican and Oxford, the Vatican and Oxford, putting ancient manuscripts online. This is actually part of a long-anticipated cooperation of the Vatican Library and Oxford University's Bodleian Library. The first 1.5 million pages of manuscripts went online Tuesday. So you could page through the Vatican Library. How many Dan Brown fans do you think took the day off just to start paging through there today?
That is so cool. I just think that's cool. I
love
I love the idea. I love the idea of ancient texts, probably stuff you would look at and can't understand. I would look for doodles, personally. I look at anything that was doodled on any ancient text.
Those are called illuminated manuscripts, Lance.
That's what I want. It's like Leonardo da Vinci. Everything he did was all doodles and like crazy ideas. And, that's, going back on that stuff. This is kind of connected, and I'll just mention this very briefly. I think that people don't realize the wealth of information online, like historical information. People like this doing stuff like this is very important. When we had the JFK assassination 50th anniversary, I spent a weekend going through the digital National Archives, looking at documents that had been created days, hours after the assassination. This stuff is gold. So, I would encourage people, check this out, spend time, dig in. You never know what you're going to find.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to see the covers, you're going to see the pages, you're going to see the markups, the doodles, as Lance is saying. If you're at all into history, this is going to be a blast for people. And maybe there'll be some apps that'll make this easy on a tablet as well. I'd like to see that as well. All right, folks, you need some money. It's holidays, right? You got to get some gifts. And you got an old gadget lying around, maybe a couple. Maybe you're hoping to get a new gadget for Christmas. Maybe you're going to get a new gadget this holiday season. Well, go to Gazelle.com and sell your old one. You're going to get some money for even a broken iPhone or iPad. If your iPhone or iPad's working, you're going to get a lot more money than that. Gazelle.com. Tell Gazelle the condition. Get a risk-free offer for your gadgets and free shipping. You've got 30 days. You can wait until after you get your gift to send the old one back. Then, as soon as they get it, they'll turn it around, pay you by check, by PayPal, or 5% bonus of what you would get paid if you choose an Amazon gift card. Go to Gazelle.com. Get an offer for your Samsung Galaxy S2. You still got that thing laying around? You can get some money for that. iPad 4th generation on Verizon. Right now, right this second, they'll give you $280. You could lock that in for 30 days. So go find out what they'll give you for your gadget. What's your iPhone worth? Take a minute. Go to Gazelle.com to find out. Do it now, because your iPhone may lose value the longer you wait. Gazelle wants to give you a little money for Christmas. You just got to give them an old gadget. Gazelle.com. We thank them for their support of Tech News Today. Looks like we have a video message coming.
Incoming message.
Ooh.
It's Nathan. Yeah. Well, thanks for sending us a video message, Nathan. He's talking about Amazon Prime Air. What do you got for us?
Hi, TNT crew. This is Nathan Ray from Manchester again. About your discussion on drone delivery. Most of the examples that you brought up and most of the problems that you brought up surrounding the drone delivery system is because you're still thinking of packages as physical packages moving in a point-to-point system. It's a bit like connecting mainframe computers to one another before the internet. You need to get away from that thinking and think of packages like data packages being switched over an open network. In this way, drones will put the packages from the fulfillment centers into the network, and then the switching will happen automatically. Most of the long journeys taking place on the top of existing public transport infrastructure, and then it's only the last mile from the curb which is done by drones the other end. And this way it makes for a much more efficient system. So take a look at pigeonpost.co, Pigeon Post Systems, and see how thinking of your packages as data packages really solves some of the problems. Thank you.
That is a fantastic point. I appreciate that, Nathan, because that does make the system capable of doing things that it won't. But does it make any of you worry about packet loss?
What made me, when he said on top of infrastructure, the only thing I think of is like the actual drone like hanging onto the top of a train. Like it's just, not like it's in the train car, but it's actually on it, clinging for life like James Bond.
Also, pigeonpost.co, by the way, fantastic. You definitely should go check that out. That's been around for a while. It's a good site, really thought-provoking site, honestly. We got an email, Ayaz.
It's from Bob in Philly. He says, regarding tablets in Applebee's, this is actually quite common in Tokyo, normally seen at places called izakayas, which are basically sit-down bars with food. Based on the 2 I went to, it was awesome, all caps. Instantly ordered drinks and food. It arrives in minutes, and best for an American in Tokyo, you can request more chopsticks after you drop your 5th pair on the floor. I also found it it led to more impulsive ordering, especially after a few beers, which is great for the restaurant. Not so great for me or my wallet, but I think these could definitely work in the States. I look forward to it.
Ah, thanks, Bob. Good to know. And in Japan, they don't do tipping, right? It's a different thing, so they don't have to worry about that aspect of it.
Yep.
Yeah. Makes sense. Well, thank you, Lance Ulanoff, for joining us as always. What's going on over at Mashable.com these days?
Oh gosh, so we've been, it's been such a crazy time with so many different products. Obviously Mashable has reviews of all the major tablets, all the major phones. So you should check that out. We've done a bunch of holiday gift guides and hands-on reviews. We're also looking, we spent a lot of time looking at that drone story, the pros, the cons, what would make it possible and what would make it impossible. We also did some deep looks at the tech or lack of tech behind the recent train derailment, the Metro North train derailment, and looked at it both from a physics perspective and the fact that there's a lot of people calling for more automated trains, which would be smart enough to know that you don't want to go 82 in a 30-mile-per-hour turn. So that was kind of interesting. So I encourage people to check it out. Mashable covers the world through the eyes of digital.
Under the steady guidance of Editor-in-Chief Lance Ulanoff. Well done, everyone. Thanks, Lance. Yeah, Mashable.com. Go check it out, folks. Also, don't forget about our open mic program coming up. This is our yearly tradition during the holidays. If you would like to be on an episode of Tech News Today, it's a special episode with other listeners, but send us an email, tnt@twit.tv. Use the subject line open mic, M-I-C, open mic. Deadline for submission is next Wednesday, December 11th. Now, you do need to be available for the show's recording. That date is Friday, December 13th at 2 p.m. Pacific. It'll take about an hour of your time. So if you're available at Friday, December 13th at 2 p.m. Pacific and you'd like to be considered for the show, most of you won't make it. We'll get way more emails than we could possibly fit in, but we will pick a few. So send an email to tnt@twit.tv with that subject line, open mic, and you might be on the show with us. Don't forget, you have a voice in what stories we cover at our subreddit, technewstoday.reddit.com. You can email us, tnt@twit.tv, and give us a call, 260-TNT-SHOW, and leave us a voicemail, or send us a video mail to tnt@twit.tv like Nathan did today. That was a great one, especially with the cat in the background. We didn't really talk about that. You have to watch the video to see it. twit.tv/TNT is our website to get everything else that we do. We'll see you tomorrow when our guest will be Brian Brushwood. Talk to you then.
Yay, the robot.